Welcome in, everybody. It is a Friday edition here of the Between the Ears show. I'm Schuyler. That is Christopher Call. And make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube and Mountaineers now. Give us a follow and all that good jazz. Let's go and do our final football wrap up of the 23 season. I know we've already done a lot of stuff in regards to 24 and stuff like that, taking a look ahead, but we didn't really ever get a chance to look back at the 23 season, so we'll do that a little bit here today.
The final
So
rankings just came out, so in
yeah,
fairness,
that's what we were waiting for. So well, let's just start there. So West Virginia gets 25th in the coaches poll, technically 27th in the AP top 25. I don't know what to really take from it. I mean, in my opinion, yeah, it stinks. I don't really think it matters in the grand scheme of things, but I think they should have been there. I mean, you look at the teams that were put ahead of them, and it doesn't really make sense. But I mean, again, we are talking about college football, college sports. Nothing ever really makes sense in this space, so it's not really much of a surprise.
no, I said to you off the show that I think there's some media members that don't really like Neil Brown,
Yeah,
especially after they picked him last and he went after them over the summer and continued
people
throughout the
forget
fall,
about that.
and continued throughout the fall campaign. So it is what it is. That's why we have a playoff system now. That's why they went away from the B. That's why they went away from AP poll to do national championships and went to the BCS formula. And there's a lot of there's a lot of people that cite different teams, but the reality was it was because of West Virginia in '93, with Lee Corso out there campaigning for Florida State on ESPN. And at that time, I mean, ESPN's still the king of college football coverage, but that was the only one at that time. So it is what it is. Just
Yep.
to me, it's better
Bummer.
because it adds motivation this off season. We'll see what the preseason rankings. That's ways away when
Yeah.
they put out their poll. There'll be a ton of way too early and all that good stuff, but it is what it is. I like it because of motivation. Coaches showed respect. Even Pat Narduzzi put him in the top 25. So the rival put you in. Quite a few Big 12 coaches put him in. Kyle Whittingham, surprisingly, didn't put him in. Thought he'd have a little more respect for the grittiness of West
Wow.
Virginia.
You
But
think you'd want to be nice to your fellow conference
yeah,
mates, but
so hey, even Lance Leopold from Kansas put him in. So
what
look,
did you
you win
see where
nine.
James Franklin put him, or did he have him in?
I don't remember. I
That's
don't
an
know.
interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see. I think a lot of the coaches that will play with you probably put him in. Franklin will probably put him at number five.
Yeah.
Try to make
More
him
than
look
likely.
try to
Well,
make it look a little better. But
oh, and that's the thing,
uh,
right? Like, I don't really think it's going to matter. I mean, some years you could say, well, you kind of want to be ranked, even if it's the bottom, five spots to go into next year because that gives you some leverage going into next season with the preseason rankings. But like, I don't really think it matters because people are going to look at this and say, okay, as a 9-win West Virginia team, they got their quarterback back, they got all this stuff back. They really don't get much further into this outside of what they did last year, is the quarterback back and all that stuff. And then, oh yeah, they open up with Penn State. You mean to tell me they're not going to have West Virginia ranked in that opportunity? Like, there's not very many top 25 matchups usually in week one at the start of every year. So, like, I think that's going to be a thing, is it not?
possibly. And I mean, you just kind of go back to it. They won 9 games. I don't know how you don't vote them in the top
Yeah.
25.
I
So
mean, you got your starting quarterback back. Like,
it's just nonsense. So it is what it is. But again, just put another chip on their shoulder, and be motivation here when workouts.
so I apologize. I'll apologize to Neil. I did not see this coming. I quite frankly thought it was a matter of not necessarily if he would get fired or when he would get fired, but I felt like he was going to be walking that line all the way up until the end of the season. And in some ways, he may have. I mean, we will never know. But even after the Cincinnati game, you're like, okay, well, if they go to Baylor and they lose, and then they lose the bowl game, he's back on that gray area. And when they were not able to really put things away, Baylor kind of left some folks undesired. I don't know. But regardless, he won both games. Baylor, the bowl game. and now they've got a lot of momentum going into 2024. So Neil, I'm sorry, I was wrong on you guys. I had them, I believe, 6-6. You may have a better memory than me. I can't remember what I picked them at,
I
but
think it was 6-6.
yeah, I think it was 6-6. So they won a couple games I didn't expect them to. I think really the only difference was just that I didn't see Garrett Green being the way Garrett Green played this year. That was the big difference for me. I thought that he was going to be good enough to start and win some games, but I just felt at some point they may have ended up turning to Nico Marchiol. Well, they never needed to do that. Whenever Garrett was healthy, he played phenomenal, and it's exciting when you have a quarterback that's a dual threat that has another year of eligibility coming back. Props to Neil Brown and that coaching staff for getting what out of Garrett Green what they got out of
I picked him 8-4, and it played out.
him.
I
Yeah,
knew
you
they'd lose.
show
I knew they'd
off.
lose. I knew they'd lose a game or two that they should. I
This
thought
is
they
the
may
second
win a
straight
game
year,
or two.
right? That you've picked
No,
it.
basketball, I picked
Basketball, that's
everything
right.
correctly in basketball. Football, well, I mean, the conference record. I think I still got the conference record right in football, I believe. So,
So you had the basketball record to the T. You had not only the overall but the Big 12 record too, right?
right. And I just did that in football as well. Boom. So
Why listen to
I don't
me?
need to apologize. In fact, they need to do better.
Yeah.
Period.
Well,
They still got a long way to go. Well, I know we'll kind of get looking in the head, but yeah, you kind of hit it. Garrett, I could see in fall camp that he had made leaps and bounds from where he was, especially when it first came into the program. But you could kind of see it. And the reason why I knew they'd lose a game or two is because they were still a young nucleus. I mean, you look at the
yeah.
receivers on the outside, we had so many questions at receivers going into this season. They answered some. They're still really young. They made some plays, didn't get that 1,000-yard receiver this year. But, a big piece of the puzzle why they had so much success was Country Roads trust, being able to retain those players. CJ Donaldson goes down, who comes in? Jaheim White. Now he was a freshman, but when you think about it, if they didn't have trust in place, more likely CJ wouldn't have been in Morgantown. So then you would have been relying on Jaheim White, or maybe more Justin Johnson, but he got hurt. So you kind of look at the injuries, you probably would have been relying on two freshmen, and that makes a big deal. It hurts you in the passing game, for pass pro. So it starts there, and I think really I don't want to say they lucked out because they went and got the kids, but having a primarily a West Virginia native offensive line where they
It's
were
pretty
able to
cool.
keep the kids,
Yeah.
and not let them waver in years past and let them go. Offensive linemen aren't as, I guess, coveted in some retrospects when they want to go out and get a playmaker and spend all their money. So probably got a little lucky in that as well. But being that they're West Virginia natives and wanted to be here, that made a difference. So I've said for years, go get West Virginia kids, especially in the trenches. You can develop them. Look at Nick Malone. I mean, this was a
Yeah, perfect
Morgantown kid.
example.
There's a Morgantown kid that's getting massive opportunity here on the offensive line. So look, if you can continue to find guys and develop them in a few years, then you're going to have guys that are going to fight for you in the trenches, and they've done that. So you got to commend them for that. And then you defensively, there was obviously question marks. Beanie Bishop answered the bell. I thought he did great, and you had some great freshmen. Look, man, I get him in the receiver. Traylon Ray, is he the linebacker?
Lathan's a linebacker.
Lathan,
Yeah.
Lathan. All right, so
We'll get
Lathan,
it by year 3 or 4 of this thing.
yeah, Lathan, he stepped in as a freshman, played
Yeah.
linebacker. Ben Cutter came in after he was injured, so they've recruited well to fit their system. And now it's just a matter of kind of continue to build on that. Defensive line was way better than I thought we could ever expect.
Yeah, I
So
mean, rotating 9 guys.
yeah, so they did a good job filling it in. It's still a huge work in progress defensively. It seems like, these guys get a little bit of, notoriety or whatever, and man, these other teams are calling. So it's definitely fluid defensively. They're going to have to figure it out. But man, they figured a way to kind of just completely turn the shift in 1 year in the outlook of the football program. Again, get credit to the trust and Run Baker for letting them utilize it.
I mean, to me, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that these things would line up, and they'd win 9 games. So Devin Carter, he has 2 touchdowns all year. Barely gets over. He needs 5. He only has like 500 receiving yards for the year. C.J. Donaldson doesn't throw doesn't rush for 1,000 yards. Garrett Green's completion percentage is in the low 50s. If you would have told me that combination of things came out, I would have told you there's no way in hell that Neil Brown is still the coach at the end of the 23 season, because it would have felt like they were just a mess offensively, and that was the furthest thing from the truth. So I think you also got to talk about Jaheim White and the surgeons that he had. I mean, people forget he only started really playing from the UCF game on, and that was the final game of October. So we're really talking 1 full month of Jaheim White, and he almost goes for 1,000 yards. That is incredible. So they have found a star in Jaheim White. I think they've got some stars in the making with Traylon Ray and Ronnie Gallagher. But Jaheim White, I mean, are you buying what he is selling right now, or do you think that was kind of like a little bit of a 1 month hit there with him?
They got a long way to go. You kind of seen the bowl game what CJ Donaldson was going through at the beginning of the year. He was overthinking everything.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there's a chance that now CJ just started playing running back last season, so there's a bit of a difference between the two. But you consider a sophomore slump if he just matches his numbers from this year, right?
yeah,
So
which
you
is still
kind
pretty good.
yeah, so you kind of got to put that in mind that he matches his numbers doesn't make necessarily a bad year. They're going to throw a lot at him this spring and into the summer. So yeah, there's a lot of stars, and you mentioned Garrett Green, his low pass percentage. What makes a difference is something that they didn't have. When you can't, when you have to have somebody overcome that, right? Like if there's a penalty when they were penalized in years past, they didn't have a playmaker to kind of overcome those mistakes. Well, Garrett overcame a lot of his mistakes when he didn't hit the pass on the outside. He either
Yeah,
made a good throw or he ended up doing it with his legs. And that's really the biggest difference. That's what they didn't have in the past. I mean, JT Daniels was a pretty decent quarterback. If you have the talent around him, he can distribute the ball, but he didn't kind of have that X factor. And you can say the same thing about Dake. He could deliver the ball, but he didn't really have anybody on the outside. Green had a bunch of freshmen on the outside, and Devin Carter, who hadn't been proven yet. The difference was he could use his legs to make a play, and
tips to Bilal Marshall too.
yeah, so that's just really the biggest difference. The receivers still have a lot to prove. There's still a long way to go and a work in progress, and that's really as we get into it, that's really a big concern for me again next year is the receiving group because they still have to prove that they can go make plays consistently, and they're going to have to make some big time plays if they want to even be in anywhere just sniff the contention of the Big 12 conference championship.
How do you go about replacing Zach Frazier? I mean, that's
You don't replace Zach Frazier, but you've got guys in there now that's been in the program 2 3 years. They've done a really good job of building that offensive line. You've seen the work. You've seen the kind of end results this season. So, Brandon Yates is going to step right in and be fine. He's going to be a great leader. He's a good leader on the field. He's a good leader on the locker room. So, yeah, you're not going to replace an All American. Hey, like they're going to go through winter workouts, spring ball, summer workouts, and all fall camp. And Yates is going to I wouldn't be shocked if Yates ends up being an all conference player. He's very good. He's athletic. It's a shame you could have got Zach Frazier one more year, but he's been here.
yeah,
He's been here for a year. He played all years.
yeah,
So, but
man.
man. That kid was so much fun to watch. I just keep replaying that pit game in my mind. I think officially, I want to say it was 14 or 16 knockdowns. That means pancake blocks. He was just tossing pit players around that field. So going to miss seeing stuff like that. And obviously the way he ended his career, um, limping off the field to save time and everything.
I
It's
mean
kind
that
of puts the
that
icing on
play
the cake for his career.
that play in particular just really encapsulates his whole time there, right? I mean, like just a hard working blue collar kid, smart as hell, tough as nails, will do everything he can to get his team a win. I mean, to be able to carry Hudson across the first down marker stops the clock. That saves time. Him getting off the field saves time. Like, and then for Brandon Yates to come in and just go and have no issues at center, having
Yeah,
no
and
reps. I mean,
that's
that's
part of the
just insane.
development. They've been using
Yeah.
him backup for 2 years. So I mean, that's just part of it. When you're
If that
building a
happens,
culture, when you're building stuff like that, it takes time, and they finally
if
getting to that point.
if that happens in 2021, it's helter skelter. I
Yeah,
mean, there's
yeah.
no doubt about it. That would have been an absolute mess. And
But it gave Baylor a chance to
yeah,
regroup there after the play. So yeah, there was a lot kind of going on there. But yeah, I mean, again, credit to the Matt Moore and his staff for continuing to find guys and continue to rotate guys, move guys, and find their strengths and see if they're better on the right or left. And that's just what they've been doing for 5 years. So I don't really, you're probably going to have maybe a drop off, but I mean, that's just kind of the perception since you're losing Zach and Doug uh, along that line. But there's guys there.
yeah.
There's guys there, and they're going to step right in. And I'm not going to say they're going to be the next Doug Nesser, but they're going to be the next two ever, and you're going to start giving them praise as the season goes along.
What I think they need to really kind of focus on between now and August or now and September or whatever is, well, I guess it would be August because I think the Penn State game's August 31st, so technically August. Um, is they're going to have to find another receiving threat at tight end. And they're going to look through the portal and they're going to still try and develop the guys that they have, but they're going to have to develop another tight end receiving threat. They're going to have to develop another running back, I think, that's going to be ready to go in time because everyone's going to know Cole Taylor. They're going to be covering him. If you could throw more 12 personnel out there,
Well, if you got two other
that's
receivers, there's not too many guys, too many programs that have three NFL caliber defensive backs out there. So
true.
you just need some development on the outside. I don't think you necessarily need a receiving threat. Traylon Davis has come a long
Well,
way, but I
more
don't think
so,
you
I
really
think
need don't really need that because they're not going to do that many double tight end sets. Maybe down in the red
I
zone
would
that will
like two
help.
tight end sets, but that's just me. But look, I think it'd be more so a comfort level, knowing that, like, if God forbid something happened to Cole,
Everyone would like two tight ends.
I want seven tight ends. That's just who
These
I am.
guys don't grow on trees.
Well, see, I guess I got this stuck because I've been playing Madden the last couple of weeks, and I use the tight ends like to death.
Oh boy.
But that's just how I go about things. I'm a power smash mouth football. But anyways, I would want a second tight end. It doesn't have to be Cole Taylor esque. I just think at worst you want something more out of Traylon Davis or whether it's T.J. Johnson, somebody to just give you a security blanket. Because if something happens to Cole Taylor, that whole element of your offense goes away. But I think more importantly, probably, is you need a third running back. CJ's had a well documented injury history. We just talked about Jaheim. Is there going to be a sophomore slump of some sorts? You need to have a third guy ready. I don't know who that's going to be, whether it's DJ Oliver, whether it's one of these freshman kids that are coming in. Is it Jalen Anderson? I mean, is he still going to be here? We don't know, but they have to almost have a third running back ready to go by August 31st or 30th, whatever that date is.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think if you got down to the third running back, you would have by the time you get down to that, I mean, worst case scenario, you lose two in the opener, and the likelihood of that happening is slim to
Technically,
none.
Jaheim was RB3 this year,
Yeah, he was.
or actually,
So
really RB4 because
probably, yeah. Well, I
Justin
mean, Jalen
Johnson,
kind of lost his when he gave up the ball, but
yeah,
yeah, I think you can't really think that far ahead. I mean, the staff will, but you kind of just want to look at the two deep right now. And I think really when you're looking at playmaker, it's all about the receivers. I
yeah,
think you're fine running game. It's just how can they make a big jump? I know Hudson Clement had his moments, but I mean, you got to have moments every week. If you want to compete for the Big 12, you got to get these guys to have those moments every week. We need to be talking about Traylon Ray on the outside. We need to be talking about Hudson Clement every single week. Rodney Gallagher. Like these guys are going to have to make big steps. They got to get stronger. They got to get off press coverage. They're going to have to understand the weak spots in the zone and what to do when Garrett Green, do they go deep or they come back when Garrett Green starts scrambling? And those are the things they're going to have to learn and get accustomed to with their quarterback this season. There's a lot. That's a huge work in progress. Because I, for one, do not, I know there's a lot of hype. I understand that, rightfully so. But I do not see West Virginia right now as a Big 12 contender, like at all, like not even close. So
uh
I think
oh,
like
dun, dun,
eight.
dun.
I think 9 wins is max for them right now. Of course, this is January. It's a long way to go. But in that note, there's also guys that could leave after spring that kind of hurt you going into next season. So I just think right now, even with the roster they have, 9 wins is the max. Like
And that's
they've got
not bad. That's
no, that's
terrific.
what that, hey, look, that's what everybody was wanting. You want at least 8, 9 wins and give yourself a chance every now and then. But right now with the receiving core, just how young they are, I don't see them giving them a chance. Now, look, they can go out and just ball out next year, and that's fantastic. Prove me wrong, but right now, what you have, you just haven't seen that consistency, and that's what they haven't had it since Neil Brown's here, so they've
Well,
got to find it.
and you just said it. You're not going to replace Zach Frazier. We saw it in the bowl game. As good as the offensive line, I think they managed, right? And they're going to have all offseason to figure it out. But there was a clear difference between Zach Frazier on that line and Zach Frazier not on that offensive line. And you're not just going to get, you might get lucky
There's
that
some
you,
good guys on that North Carolina defense, so
there is, there
you
is.
got to give them credit. But there was a lot of what was going on was guys they're just young and they overthink it.
Yeah.
You
Well,
just got to play.
and the
You just
other
got to
thing is
play.
too, you're not going to more than likely just pluck another Beanie Bishop out of the portal and get a consensus All American. That is a once in a how many ever years thing. I mean, there's only been
I
how
mean, it's
many,
only been around 3. Like, Porto's only like well,
right? But
in this portal era, it hasn't been around too long.
you're not going to find those types of talents every single year in the portal or even out of high school. It's a hard thing to do, and to get that type of replay or the production out of somebody, that's asking a lot. So I think you factor all that in. You factor in, okay, this is, I mean, technically you could say a sophomore slump could be coming up for Garrett. I mean, everyone's talking about him building off of this season, but this is the first full year he started.
Did
So
he
now
peak?
teams got tape on
Did
this
he
kid.
peak?
Yeah, did he peak?
Because
Is this the best of
yeah,
what we've seen?
look, all these defense coordinators in Big 12 do not want him running all over them. So they're going to be watching
Yeah.
all his tendencies and everything. What he doesn't do well, what they're going to force him out of. Yep. So they've all got a long way to go because it's this. They play 11 power conferences, and you're going to start off with Penn State, who's going to see all those weaknesses and have the talent to expose them.
And
So
we're not, I
yeah,
mean, we're not trying to be that.
if you look what happened last year right at the beginning of the year, like Justin Johnson got hurt. We just talked about running backs getting hurt. Like guys got hurt, beat up in that first game. Like that's a
Yep.
tough game to start the season off with. So yeah, it's
I'd
going to
take
be
it
a
off.
long, grueling season, and just like it was this year, and that's why they had their ups and downs. Lost AB in the back for a while, and dropped a couple games. So yeah, that defense is going to be important. I think they've done a good job of kind of piecing it together for the last like 4 years of just trying to just put guys out there essentially.
Band-Aids, Tony
But
Fields.
now with the NIL, um, they have they're setting themselves up, with a better chance. But you really want that kind of chemistry. As much as they do, and kind of movement and recognition, you really got to be able to trust the people behind you. So they've got a long way to a long way to go in that area. But they do have a lot of young talent that they can continue to retain to kind of build off what they've done.
And I mean, the schedule, like it's so far out that we're trying to project this crap. But I mean, just looking at it based on home and away, they don't have the date set, but it's not it's not this year's schedule, right?
It's
It's a much
brutal.
more difficult schedule. We know Arizona for sure is an away game that in a team that returns a lot of talent off a
Yeah,
team
they
that
got to
just won
travel
a championship.
across the country to play Arizona. That's going to be
Yeah,
probably they probably will be, they'll be more of a consideration, a dark horse contender than West Virginia. Like, this is going to be a good team. They picked up
got
some
to go to
quality
Oklahoma
wins.
State.
Yep. Place
Got to
when
go
last time they
Cincinnati,
won there?
which yeah,
Oh,
people
they
can
won that
overlook
championship.
Cincinnati, but look, that's going to be year two for them. I'm not saying they're going to make
Any
tremendous
road game's
progress.
tough. I don't care where you
Right.
go. It's not
It's the
easy.
first time they've hosted West Virginia in how many years? That's
Yeah.
to them, that's going to be important.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of tough games. And obviously, the one right out of the gate with Penn State, you got Pitt. I don't know if they're going to do anything, but I mean,
It's a
it's a
rivalry game
rivalry
at
game.
the and they'll give out all the t-shirts and give out all the tickets so it fills again. Like, I've seen anything like that before. Everybody was wearing the same t-shirt. Kind of odd, but yeah, I mean that's what's
Go ahead
gonna
and say
happen.
it. You said it was a little
It was
cultish.
cultish, yeah. Everyone wearing the same shirt. And you could tell they like came from the office because a lot of them had like collared shirts underneath their T-shirt that they handed out. So there was definitely corporations that got a lot of tickets and probably made it mandatory for them to go, or
Hey, you
made it
want to go to
they're
this
getting
football
paid.
game for free or for $10? Here's
Yeah,
a T-shirt.
yeah,
Stroll on down to Heinz
some
Field or
extra
Acrisure.
credit work.
Ugh.
Yeah, it probably won't happen again because they don't. They were so paranoid about West Virginia having more fans there, and they're going to be paranoid about it next year. But I don't know if they can get the buy-in because that was after the Pickett season. So
Yeah,
coming off what, three
three
and nine?
wins.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. They might have to legit pay people next year.
Yeah, and just I mean that weekend, Pirates are playing the Royals. So just saying, not that it really matters to anybody else, but
Royals is a sell. You
no,
trying
the
to?
Pirates are a sell. Dang it!
Oh,
Come
good
on
Lord.
now.
I don't know what's worse, the Royals or the Pirates.
Ugh, yeah, we won't get into that discussion
Oh,
because
we can get into it.
I'll get
I think it's hilarious that Pittsburgh teams lose.
I'll, I'll get depressed. But anyways, let's get back on track here. Go over to the defensive side. Kind of felt like an up and down year, right? The defense kind of helped carry the team a little bit through that weird little period where Garrett was hurt. They had to go with Nico. The TC or the Pitt game, Texas Tech, and then when Garrett came back for TCU, they played well. And it was really since the bye week on when they played Houston and moving forward, really didn't get a whole lot of consistency out of that side. They played, I think, decent against BYU, but they had a backup quarterback in, did okay against North Carolina, but again, slew of backups. It felt like a unit that kind of regressed, but in some respects, I mean, you can't really blame them. I mean, they had so many injuries on that side at key spots. So, I mean, do you feel like it was a unit that went backwards, or is it, or there were some things there that was just it was a lot to overcome?
No, they just got exposed. The other teams just didn't have
Okay,
the other teams just didn't have what Houston did. If you go back and listen to the Houston keys of the game, I said this is a bad matchup for us. I don't like it. They got really good receivers in the slot and on the outside,
yeah.
and they can expose that. They can stretch the field. And you saw when a team like Oklahoma, what they could do with it. And that's what happened. It snowballed quickly. When
Oh boy, was it
they
ever
couldn't
quick.
keep up offensively, they struggled there early, lost their confidence early. It snowballed really bad. That's what happened. So it wasn't that they were bad; they just didn't have all the pieces. Like you said, there was
Yeah.
injuries. It's just a work in progress. That's why it's important to keep bringing these freshmen in and retain players. Like they just could not if they when teams were able to stretch the field and had a quarterback that could get it out there, it was a problem. I mean, Penn State didn't really. I mean, you kind of see how their season played out with Drew Alari. Kind of felt he was overhyped going into the season, but at a program like Penn State, they want to build that up as
Is he
much as
even the
possible.
starter next year? I mean, like he did okay. He's done well, but
Well, I mean, it
you're
doesn't
high on that
matter.
Pagula kid.
Apparently, James Franklin doesn't know what a 50-50 ball is, and he won't throw it down the field. So it's quite impressive what they're doing there at times. But yeah, I mean, that's just really what it is.
Oh
When
man,
Houston, you think about Pitt didn't have a quarterback. Look, it's kind of like Texas Tech didn't really. What
they
were they?
lost their starting quarterback in that
Yeah,
game.
so you know, Dana, we've talked about it, he's a great offensive mind. He can see that. He knows what to do, and he kind of exposed a little bit. And Oklahoma was going to do what they were going to do anyway. So that was kind of like why, when you get towards this, if you look around college football, you can even look at, outside of Michigan, their defense, but if you look around college football, the scores kind of get higher and higher because there's more film. There's more exposure. People can see where the weaknesses are, and if they're able to attack it, they will. But just because the seam might be open, do you have a tight end or a slot that can do anything with it? So I mean that's just the difference. Just because it's open doesn't mean you have a quarterback that can make that throw or a receiver that can get in that space. But some of the times there's just times that they went up against offenses that could, and this West Virginia couldn't really do anything about it.
So, I mean, there's been some good, some bad under Jordan Leslie. What is the overall feeling from you in terms of Jordan Leslie? Like, is he someone that can produce consistent defense, or is there a lot of questions? Because, like, to me, I'm more on the skeptical side of it because you look at the 2020 season. That was the year they were top 10 top five in almost everything. That was COVID year. And I'm not trying to take it away from them because everyone had the same situations, but they didn't play a full season. They didn't play the full schedule. So there were some differences in that year, I think,
Yeah, the
particularly.
biggest difference was NIL. You keep losing all your
Yeah.
defense. That's the problem. So it's just like the same with Neil Brown. I'm not decided yet. We haven't gotten to that point where we've retained players and seen what we can do with them. There really hasn't been a point where they've built the program up. Like if you keep losing guys because you weren't able to keep them through NIL, then how can you judge somebody? Like you have to like if you don't have if you're just plugging in players every year and you don't have the talent, how can you basically have to call everything perfect. You almost have to know exactly what your opponent's going to do every single
Well,
play.
that's what they get paid millions for, Chris.
Yeah, well, nobody's going to do that. Nick Saban, why he's so good is he's a good recruiter and he's a good developer, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the funny thing is you'll hear people say, well, if Nick Saban didn't have the talent, well, no shit. Like
Exactly.
if you don't have talent, you're not going to win. You can look across the NFL. If the guys aren't talented, they're not winning. Like I just talked about, like guys have to make plays to overcome mistakes and so forth. Like you have to have that. So they had Beanie Bishop. They have some guys. They had Lee Koba. They had that defensive line. But in this day and age in football, you really got to have 11 guys on the same page, and you got to have talent everywhere. Because again, when you get to Oklahoma State, they're going to make you match up one on one. They're going to spread the field in that zone. All of a sudden, you can't shrink it down. Like there's going to be holes everywhere because they just go from
Yeah.
sideline to sideline. So it's just you got to get guys, you got to retain them. They've done a good job, recruiting. It's just you got to be able to keep them. You got to develop that chemistry in the secondary, and you're going into again another year where you're just replacing everybody. Again, there's still some youth uh, in the program, but it's frustrating because these kids just aren't patient anymore, and it's really hurting a lot of a lot of like look around. There's a lot of defense struggling to defend the pass because they can't keep anybody because all these kids want think they're the next whoever, and they feel like they need to be playing now, and that's why like look at Nico. This kid's on the right path. Like he is exactly on the right path, and you need more guys like this, and you go down. I know Mac Jones hasn't been a world beater in the NFL, but he played 1 year in college and got drafted in the first round. He bided his time. He waited. That's important. Like you shouldn't just want to go play. You need to develop. So really, this defense, they got to find some retention and just kind of develop these guys. So I'm just wait. I think Leslie does fine. He's not going to be. I don't know if he's going to be a great defensive coordinator, but it's kind of hard to judge when you just really haven't been able to keep a full roster for quite some time. And like when you think about the portal, that defense has just been ravished the last few years. Like it was
Yeah.
like look at Akeem Messidor, Tyke Smith,
He
Daryl
took
Porter
a hit
Jr.,
this offseason. Tell me
Drayshawn
what.
Miller. Like it's astounding how much they lost in the secondary after those first 2 years when the portal opened up. Like Daryl Porter Jr. was still starting for Miami this year. Drayshawn Miller fell off the map, but he was doing well here. He was good in this system. So there's been a lot of guys in the system that played well. They just left because they didn't have the trust. So wait and see. I figure they're still going to lose defensive linemen because SEC will pay big money for defensive linemen. So that's going to be a continuous. I think it's good that they're so deep right now. But it's good that they're finding that depth and continue to find gems. I mean, look, Leslie went and found Akeem up in Canada. Like he's a good he's a good talent. He can find talent.
I mean, what worries
Look
me
what
the
Dante
most,
Stills is doing in the NFL. I mean, of course he was here,
yeah.
but
I
they're
mean,
producing guys.
the thing that worries me the most, I would probably say is, I mean, obviously the corner situation. I mean, that's obvious. But I think it's more so you just had a season where you had a consensus All American at the position, and yet you really played a lot of zones still and still leaned on it when you were struggling. At some point, they've got to be able to mix in some man coverage and play it enough at a high level to where they don't present the same damn picture over and over and over
Wait,
again.
to do that, you got to have a linebacker that can cover, and you got to
Right.
have safeties that can cover. It
It's a
just goes
it's
more
a
than just
3 level
one
thing.
corner. That's right. That's what I'm saying. It goes all the way around. That's
I
why it's
agree.
that's why
I'm
it's
not
important.
saying it's a corner thing. I just think it's a schematic thing. They've got to get the right personnel in there because you can't. Okay, the Oklahoma game is a perfect example. When you're getting carved up like that in the zone, you've got to be able to. I'm not saying the man's going to go to, and I know Jordan said
They
that they
played a
went and
lot
they
of
did
man in
everything.
that. They played man in that game. That's why they got burned a lot.
Right. But that the
If you want
reason
to
they got
really
burned is
look,
because they
if
didn't
you want
have the
to,
personnel.
you know why Drake Stoops had a big game? Go back and look who was covering him.
Yeah. I know. I know.
It was Aubrey Burks. He was getting smoked.
And that's what I'm saying. Like I know they played man in that game. I know they played zone. They literally threw the kitchen sink at Oklahoma, but you've that's the exact example of what I'm talking about. You've got to be able to have multiple schemes, or not schemes, but multiple looks. Because if you don't, you're going to see what happened in the Oklahoma game happen more often. But it starts up front, goes to linebacker. It's a whole 3 level thing. I get that. So I'm skeptical on that side of the ball for sure. I'm not really concerned as much with the offense, but and look, we're not trying to be Debbie Downers. Like this is a clearly much better football team than anyone probably thought. I mean, well, maybe other than you because you had them at 8-4, but are they overachievers in 23 or are they right where they should have been? Like I have a hard time trying to figure that out because when you bring in the schedule piece of this, yeah, they didn't really play the toughest of schedules, but at the same time, it's a team that had struggled to win some of these close games, like the TCU games, the Texas Tech game, even the Baylor game. You could bring in there. So, like, did they overachieve? I think they did.
Yeah, if you're going with the national consensus, absolutely. Like everyone had them last in the Big 12, didn't give them a chance. Garrett Green was the worst quarterback in Power Five. Like go down the list of nonsense that was out there. Even at
Yeah,
8-4, I thought they overachieved because again, go back to Penn State, look how many injuries came out of the game. Look how many injuries came out of the Pitt game. Like they overcame a lot of injuries and a lot of guys stepped up. I know you're like, hey, look how bad they were against Oklahoma. Like, yeah, like that's the problem. The problem they've had. Like Daryl Porter still should be here. Trayshawn Miller still should be here. Like they've had guys. Like
and it's
you've
not
had
the
those
first
guys in
time.
the program 3 or 4 years. Like it's a huge kill. It's just a killer. So now you're trying to get Jacoby Spell's going to be going to his 3rd year. We'll see what he's got. Like you've had to try to hit on so many kids young because the rest of them left.
Yeah,
And like I said, to me, it's just not fair to judge Leslie. Like he's done the best he can to try to hide a lot of things. But when you go up against a team like Oklahoma, that, like I said, they saw it and they just ran with it. And when the offense couldn't keep up, just kind of is what it is. That's what you were kind of hoping for that game. And Garrett didn't have it that night. And it just happens. That's just part of it. Like they're not Alabama and Georgia. Maybe they'll get there, but that's just it's football. Like you can go around all around the country, and a lot of people are going to say the exact same thing. Like, we were a little weak at this safety position, or we were a little weak on this linebacker position, and come November, everyone picked on it, and our offense couldn't overcome it. And that's just the way it is sometimes, and
yeah.
it happens more often than not. It's football. So hey, look, if they're going to consistently get 8 or 9 wins then have a win the line of scrimmage on offense. They're going to give them shots every so often to be a Big 12 contender. So to me, they're on the right path. We'll just see. Like we haven't had the chance to see Neil Brown off a successful season. So
Good point.
there's a lot of questions going into this season. Again, but more in of a positive direction than say last year, where it's like, well, is Neil Brown going to be around by October? There was a lot of craziness out there, but
I mean,
um, it
so
just it's just different this year.
so why? I guess since we've been very skeptical of this, and I think rightfully so. What are what are your reasons for why there should be some optimism? Because mine is like, I mean, it's the obvious. You got Garrett and Jaheim, you got all these guys coming back, but we just ran through the question marks on the defensive side. Like, is how do you overcome that? How do you overcome that side of the defense and overcome a tougher schedule and have that optimism going into next year? Like, what is the number one thing for you when you look at this team? You say, "Yeah, that there's still a reason why I think they can win 9 games."
Well, I'll start off with this. One more negative before I get positive.
You just can't get away from it.
Some of the losses last year, they talked about, they couldn't handle success, right? Everyone talked them up after winning a few games and they couldn't handle success. But everyone's going to be talking them up this all off season. So we'll see how they handle success, see what they've learned from that. But I think my biggest optimism kind of stemming from that is Garrett Green. He's been such a great leader in the locker room, and he's a kid that just won't quit. He's
He's not
ready
a finished
to.
product.
So he's going to work hard. He's going to work with those receivers, and I think defensively they're building the right culture. You're bringing a lot of talent there within that linebacker room. Now some of them still got to play a lot more games. We haven't seen Josiah Trotter. He's got to come back from injury, but there's a lot of talent, a lot like
Yep.
better talent, a lot better talent than we had coming into this year. So I think that's really what my optimism is, and I've seen like Jaheim White when he had success. That was a lot of Chad Scott. Like if you were able to watch practice and how they coach and how they teach the fundamentals with it to fit their scheme, and when you see them implement those fundamentals in the field, it
Yeah.
works like every time. So I think that's just where my trust kind of lies is that they've been able to build these kids and add to their game every single year. Though, like I said, a little curious about Jaheim. He's more of a finished product than CJ, obviously coming in as a running back. But he's going to have to get better in pass pro. He's going to have to get better in a lot of areas for him to succeed. But the kids that they have are hungry, and that's what gives me optimism. They all want to work together. Neil's talked about the culture's gotten better, and you can see it, you can feel it, and they just want to win. So there's a lot. To me, there's a lot to when just that alone that's where my optimism is you gotta everyone's bought in, everyone's willing to work together and find their role and just try to win some games.
Yeah. I mean, I would be right there with you on all of that. I think this is a close knit group, and you're finding some nice pieces here in the portal. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for optimism. So we're not trying to be like killing the mood here, killing
No,
the
it's
vibe.
called
We're just being
reality. It's
honest.
called it a
Like
reality.
reality, right? And I'm just saying, from a guy that has predicted the basketball and the football records to a T the last year.
Yeah,
Uh,
but we got a long way to go for this actual predictions.
yeah, exactly. Well, next thing is going to be the baseball predictions. If you hit that, then you hit the triple crown. So I don't know what
No, we're not. I mean, baseball predictions like that's like
that's a crapshoot, but
throwing at a
darts.
dartboard a mile away. So
Yeah. So well, anyways, that'll wrap it up for us here today and this week. Obviously, no shows on the weekends, but we will have the post game show for the West Virginia Texas men's basketball game tomorrow. I believe that one tips off at 6 o'clock. Is that right? So we'll have the fun of that. Can't wait.
I
Let's
feel
go,
bad
Josh.
for Alert and those kids, but whatever.
So we'll have that.
At least the kids get paid now.
Yeah,
They're
maybe
not.
that's the issue now.
No,
Maybe
at
that's
least
the
they
no.
get
I'm just
paid
kidding.
for
That's not
taking the heat.
that's
Hey,
not the issue.
well, we got a lot of basketball we can talk about later, but
Yeah. So
yeah.
join us for that fun fest tomorrow here on Mountaineers Now. You can
Hey,
subscribe.
there's a chance they can upset them.
There's a
Let's
chance.
shoot 50% for one game and do something. Come on.
It's gonna happen at some point. The law of averages. I go back to it all the time. It's got to come back your way at some point, right?
Yeah.
You would think. But you can check us out on YouTube at Mountaineers Now. Hit that subscribe button. Give us a like. Follow us on X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it this week, at the same handle. For Christopher Hall, I'm Schuyler Callihan. Thank you guys for watching this episode and these episodes this week of Between the Ears. We'll catch you guys here tomorrow night for the post-game show. Take care.